A sweet, but somehow warped lullaby. A piece which is engulfed by a sea of reverb and dreamy sounds throughout. From a Place of Love has this amazing ability to be sweet and beautiful sounding to the outsider, but to the insider, someone who's experienced Library of Ruina, it means so much more. But the question for us is, how does From a Place of Love by Mili manage to achieve this in the best way possible? Now, although we don't like to talk about Lovetown, we're going to be doing just that in this video, and in particular, breaking down how From a Place of Love is able to create this unusual mix of sweetness and almost lullaby-like piece of music, but at the same time, feel very disturbing. Now, if you haven't experienced From a Place of Love in Library of Ruina itself, I definitely think it's worth doing that first, purely because I think I went into it blind and it almost impacts you a bit more if you don't know too much of what to expect. I would describe From a Place of Love as a piece which is able to do simple things very, very effectively. There aren't too many instruments, there aren't too many effects, but the ones that are used deliberately, very intentionally, and to amazing effect. So we're going to be discussing 4 different aspects of the piece itself: the instruments, the structure, the chords, and the lyrics. Now, starting with instruments, From a Place of Love has this amazing ability to be able to use few things, but use them incredibly well, as opposed to blasting the entire track with loads of sounds. In many ways, a lot of the ambience is being created by the effects themselves, rather than the actual choice of instruments. So in terms of the main sounds that are in From a Place of Love, let's walk through them. So we start off with the electric piano, which sounds like this. And that combined with the reverb just adds this lush, dreamy kind of lullaby-like tone to the entire track. That's what we hear throughout the entire song. There's also a whiny synth sound, which is the only thing I can describe it as, and it sounds like this. And that starts from the beginning. There's a bell-like synth, if I can describe it as that. And we hear that come in from time to time, as well as a glockenspiel as well, which has loads of effects padded onto it. There's string parts, which come in towards the latter sections of the song. With a violin part as well that's playing over the top of it. And finally, we have drums, of course, as well. And all of those things combined make the instruments of From a Place of Love, excluding, of course, the 2 signatures, the vocals and the background vocals. So the vocals themselves are baked in delay and reverb, and that's what creates this hugely dreamy, kind of almost euphoric feeling to the song. They sound like this.
Hard to put that in an amicable sentence. I'm sorry, actually, not really. There's just so much work to...
And then of course we have the background vocals, which are panned all across the stereo image, and that also helps to fill up the entire space. And the way in which Cassie sings as well, I think goes so far to kind of explain the tone of the entire track. Like, imagine replacing Cassie with a different singer, and I think you have an entirely different song.
All for one, all for everyone. We stay together, then it's forever. Inside the train, we walk till the aisle.
Before I continue playing, if you want to join us on the Warp Train for more covers, remixes, analysis video from Library of Ruina and in the future Limbus Company, make sure to subscribe, it really helps out. Now, If you've listened to any other Mili compositions, particularly ones outside of Library of Ruina, you might have noticed something that I've been spotting, and it's that in terms of structure, things aren't very predictable. You have sections which don't repeat themselves, you have interludes in the middle of pieces which seem like it almost pause in the entire structure of the song. But From a Place of Love doesn't do that. It's very familiar, it's very repetitive in terms of the chord structures and everything. And so there actually aren't many sections across the entire piece, but the ones that are used are often repeated and evolved and developed, and that's the thing that helps to create this level of familiarity. We start with the intro, which is 19 bars long. It sets us up with the main motif of From a Place of Love.
Yes, I have been so afraid.
Then we have section A. And I'm calling it section A because this song feels more like a story than it does a traditional song in a way. That's 17 bars.
You gave me loyal patience and persistence.
We then have section B, which is a little bit of a reprieve in terms of the instrumental, and that's 16 bars.
Doubts, you're a nice girl, I'm just not ready now.
We then have section C, which is almost like the climax of the song, and that's played twice. The first time it's 16 bars, the second time it's 8 bars.
We stay together, then it's forever, inside the triangle.
And then finally, the outro, which is 12 bars long, and of course in the game it then loops after that.
That it didn't happen, forbidden.
It plays with our expectations ultimately, because while the structure is very straightforward, to the point, deliberate, intentional, very repetitive in some ways, it evolves and builds and changes in terms of the actual sounds that we're hearing, and that's the thing that helps to make the track sound a bit more uncomfortable. Now, we've spoken a lot about how the instruments and the overall sound and design of the entire piece helps to create the feelings that it presents throughout the track, this contrast between love and at the same time feeding on each other. But I think the chords themselves go a long way to explaining how it's able to present this feeling to us. So let's break down the chords a little bit. The key is in C major. Universally regarded as one of the happiest key signatures, but at the same time, is From a Place of Love a happy piece? Not really, but I think the effects and the lyrics and the way in which Cassie sings, for example, go a long way to explain why you wouldn't describe this as being happy in and of itself. It feels a lot more deeper than that. But the chord structure also goes a long way to explaining this too. We have what's referred to as a stepwise motion in the bass. This is where the notes in the bass descend, and in this case they descend chromatically. They sound like this. Almost like the idea that things are falling apart almost, because that contributes to the kind of overall message of Lovetown, I think, in so many ways. And we constantly move between major and minor here. And you'll see that not only are we moving down, but you almost have this weird feeling of, am I supposed to feel at peace? Am I supposed to feel comfortable? Am I supposed to feel uncomfortable? Here's what I mean. So we start on a C major. Then we move to a G major. Now we've got our first minor, G minor. Now I move to an F major. Now an F minor. Back to a C. D major. And then we end really positively, but almost and anticlimactically in a way, on an E major. It's leading us to something. This is consistent across the entire section A and the intro as well. Section B is where it changes, at least that first phrase changes. We still descend at the beginning. But now we move into an A major. Surprising, it almost feels like it clashes. I once performed a really nice piano and vocal duet From a Place of Love with Snowy Snowish you can find here. And it's interesting because it's the sort of piece where if you're an outsider listening to this, it just sounds nice. You aren't paying too much attention to the lyrics and what's going on. But if you actually start to dissect and break down the lyrics, that's when you realize how disturbing the piece actually is. So let's have a look in a bit more detail about the lyrics themselves.
Seconds later, a new future. I know that I agreed to this
So before I begin, I would like you to go give these lyrics a read for yourself. What do you think they're talking about? Do you think it is a love song? I guess you could say that it is, but also, if it is in fact a love song, why are the lyrics so creepy? I'll try and summarize my thoughts in a non-spoilery way, and mention how I interpret the song from an outsider's perspective. This is oddly easy to do for me, since the song uses a lot of keywords that really stick with you. I think all of us can understand what the song is saying, even without knowing what scene it's being used for, such as not being ready for something, wishing something never happened, having doubts, it being difficult to describe how you're feeling at the moment. Those are emotions that all of us, or if not all, most of us, can relate to. Because of those key moments of relatability, it makes bits like, "But then mommy said it ain't family biz," "Inside the train we walk down the aisle," and "Blood is thicker but the drink I prefer is water" all the more weird. These parts are not as easily relatable, or so I hope, and give it that mysterious and unnerving feeling. It makes you truly curious what the heck the context is because of this mixture of relatability mixed with wonder. I don't believe I heard the song by itself before playing the game, but I do like to listen to the song outside of the game, and I see the meaning of the song like this on its own. There's a certain opportunity that you're not sure is the right one to make, but people around you keep insisting that you should take the risk even though you have so many doubts about it. If you already played the game, this actually makes a lot of sense with the additional context, but I don't believe it's something that people non-familiar cannot grasp onto. That's what I love so much about the lyrics from Mili songs. They're whimsical, fantasy-rich, but carry an element with them where you can latch onto certain points of familiarity. And whilst you can technically say this about any song that does that, I still think Mili somehow does it uniquely. It just somehow feels different when they do it. Wait, Snow, but you still haven't told us the answer to, why are the lyrics so creepy? Well, remember what I said about the lyrics and having these points of familiarity? What type of feeling arises in you when you have the feeling of doubt? I personally say that it causes fear in me. I absolutely love that these lyrics use emotions and so many metaphors to explain feeling a certain type of way. And that's pretty much all I have to say. So, did I warp your perspective on the lyrics?
By the way, I also stream on Twitch about twice a week with Snowy Snowish, so if you want to see us play some Ruina, because I'm approaching the end of it, definitely make sure to check out the Twitch. And I think, therefore, the lyrics go a long way to explaining the many different layers of From a Place of Love. At the top, you have this beautiful sounding instrumentation and sound design throughout the entire piece. You have the washy reverb and everything. In the middle, you have the structure, which helps to provide this level of familiarity and creates a kind of almost lullaby-like feeling. But at the bottom layer, you have the actual meaning behind the lyrics themselves and what they're actually getting at, which if you're an outsider, you're not necessarily paying much attention to. It feels strange to kind of say, until they started feeding on each other, until you start knowing the context of the song itself. Special thanks to my patrons, Red Fluffy, PWL, Jeff the Hero, Andrew Dunn, Omar, Randvar, Snowy Snowish, Stratusfire, Helia, and AJ Curiel. Yes. Fine, without reading any notes.